Hello, YouTube. Coach Tueller back at you. Yes, as you can see here, I used to be a coach, and even though I'm no longer currently a coach, I can still retain that title. And because I am a former coach, I have a lot to teach you guys today. 5.3 inverse equations and proof by composition. Last time, we talked about this. Functions are inverses if we plug in an input, get an output, take that output, plug it into the inverse, and get the same input that we started with right there as its output. Okay, that's what inverse functions are. Let's start off with a magic trick. Pick any number. Hope you guys are doing this. Add 6. It's going to be so cool. Now multiply the result by 2. Continue with it. Subtract 12. Divide your number by 2. And the number you have now is the number you started with. Whoa. How cool is that? Guys, it's been that way since 2011. This magic trick. Just kidding. Who knows how old it is? Since a long time ago. Did you see my typo there? That was kind of embarrassing. It's okay. Guys, people are often mystified by such tricks. Hopefully I mystified you by that one. But really, it's just inverse operations occurring. Inverse operations are occurring. So, let's dive into this. If I have the equation 3x and I want to write its inverse, this is what we can do. We can write the equation in words and then write it backwards. What I mean by this is, this means x times 3. X times 3. So now we write it backwards. How should I say this? Yeah, okay, we're going to do x divide 3. X divide 3. You guys see how that works there? We're basically writing a new equation that is the inverse of the original. Okay, I'll give you a second to write that down. Okay, let's look at the next one. Let's write this equation in words. X squared. X squared. Now to write the inverse, we're going to go backwards and opposite. Backwards and opposite. Okay, so over here we're going to write, what's the opposite of squaring? Square root x. There's the inverse. Okay. 2 to the x power. We're going to skip it. Okay, this one. This is a multi-step equation. Multi-step equation. Let's write what's happening in terms of order of operations. We're first multiplying by a 2. We are then subtracting a 5. Two-step equation, a little bit different now. We're still going to go backwards in opposite words. But we go backwards. So I'm going to start with negative 5, and its opposite is positive 5. Multiply 2, its opposite is divide 2. So what I'm saying here is the equation in words is 2 multiply x times 2 and subtract 5. So the inverse in words is the opposite of that, but also backwards. Backwards opposite. So weird. Add 5, divide 2. So then what we do is we start with a blank x, and we apply these down the line. And each thing after applies to the entire equation. So that's why the x plus 5, all of it got divided by 2. Okay. Let's look at the next one. In words, this equation is, first, add 5. Next, divide by 3. We're going to go backwards and opposite. Multiply by 3, subtract 5. Backwards and opposite. I'm saying it a lot because that's the key to remember. Okay, then to write the inverse equation, we start with a blank x. We multiply it by 3. And we take all of that and we subtract 5 from it. Okay, that means this equation is the inverse of this equation. That's what we mean by this notation I'm circling in red. F of x, inverse equation x. Okay. The key is to follow order of operations here. What is the first order of operations? Now, subtraction doesn't usually come first in order of operations, but what comes very first in order of operations? Parentheses. Are we remembering our order of operations? Parentheses first. So the subtract 3 is actually what occurs first. Then we square root. Or sorry, not square root. We square. So I just wrote that in terms of order of operations. Another way to think of it is this. If I were to plug in a number for x, what would I do to that number first if I'm trying to evaluate? I would not take that number and square it. Not yet. I would first have to subtract 3 to that number, and then I could take that whole number and square it. Okay, that's why we write the negative 3 before the square, even though order of operations has a subtraction after exponent. It's because this was in parentheses. Okay, backwards, opposite. Opposite of squaring is square rooting. I just kind of give these symbols in a list. Square root, add 3. Okay, so I'm going to start with a blank x. I'm going to go down this list now. Square root, add 3. Make sure that this 3 is not underneath the square root. That's what it would look like if these were flipped. If these were flipped and it was plus 3 and then square root, then it would be the x plus 3, all of it square rooted. They're very different things. Okay. I think you guys get this. Let's skip 7 just because I want to write my own equation here. Let's do something crazy. Watch this. 4x plus 5 over 2 squared plus 1. Okay. Now this is a big step up from what we just did, but I kind of want to walk through one like this. So I'm giving you a second to write it down. If you've made it this far in the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Smash that bell so you don't miss another video. Let's see, a shout out Seventh period, shout out. Let's see here. Carlin? You on time? You made it yet? Probably not. We're only a couple minutes into the video. Who else could I shout out? Elise! Can't wait to say that one again when I'm in person. Eighth period, what do we got? Tatum and Gabe? You guys sitting across from each other right now? Awkward silence? I feel like you guys should talk more. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I really shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. Okay, should have it written down by now. Okay, order of operations. Man, I really feel bad for what I just said. Anyway. What will come first? Think of it like this. If the order of operations, PEMDAS, is confusing you to follow that, think of it as, what would I do first if I plugged in a number for X? What would be the first step to do? It would be multiply by a 4. After I multiply that number by a 4, I would take that and I would add 5. I would take this whole number and divide it by 2. That's when I would square it. And last but not least, I would add 1. Okay, that's my list. There are 5 different operations occurring in this question. Whoa. 5 different operations happening in this equation. And I just wrote them in order of operations. Okay. If you have questions on the order of operations, I'm trying to decide if I should go into this right now. Because you know parentheses is first, so look, this is parentheses in blue. So then it would be multiplication, division. But why would I do multiplication, then addition? It's because this is technically in parentheses and has to be done before we divide here. That may have just confused people, but it also might have answered a question. Okay, backwards opposite list is the inverse. Backwards opposite. So I'm going to start with a subtract 1. I'm then going to square root. I'm then going to multiply by 2. I'll then subtract 5. And last, I'll divide by 4. Okay, so watch me apply all of this to an x. I'm going to take a blank x. I'm going to give it lots of space around it. To write the inverse of this big, long, ugly equation, I'm going to first subtract 1. Now I'm going down the line. Subtract 1. Whatever's next gets applied to everything that happened before. Square root. Apply to everything. Multiply it by 2. Subtract all of that by 5. And last but not least, divide it all by 4. That is how you write an inverse. Okay. Flip the page. Page 93. Page 93. There's another way. A more famous way. Not a lot of people might know this way. We call this the magic trick way. Or the write the equation in words way. List way. I like it. It's my favorite method. However, there is another method, and it's the most famous. It is to get your equation into x and y form, switch x and y, and then solve for y. You may have even heard of people doing this before with inverses. What we mean by switch it to x and y, or change f of x to a y, is get this thing in x and y form. F of x always means y. And we should have an x equal to y. So this n becomes an x, and the f of x becomes a y. Now what we do is we flip x and y. We flip x and y. Now all we have to do is solve for y. We're trying to get this guy all by himself using our algebra skills. Add 2. Okay, so now I'm coming up here. X plus 2 equals y plus 1 to the third. Next step to get y by itself, I'm going to cube root both sides. Cube root is the opposite operation of cubing. And last but not least, I will subtract 1 from both sides. So I get the cube root of x plus 2 minus 1 equals y. And this is the inverse. You could probably notice that as I went through that, I was doing the opposite operations. Basically what we were doing here in this list. It's just another method to solve for. Okay guys, I got cut out on that last video. Put them together. Anyway, this method you can use, switch x and y if you would like. Let's move on to proof. We can prove that two functions are inverses using composition, what we learned in the first lesson of this unit. If I plug in if I plug in f into g and I get out an x, and then I flip it and I plug f into g and get out an x, then I know that the two functions are inverses. Let me show you what I mean. Let's first take g and plug it into f of x. Four x minus 3 plus 3 over 4. This simplifies to 4x over 4, because these combine together. And then what happens to the 4's? They cancel and we get an x. Okay, so it works if we put g into f. That is f of g of x. So now we got to flip it, and we have to take, we got to flip it and put f into g. Okay? Okay, so this can be rewritten, hopefully you guys remember your fraction rules, as 4x plus 3 over 4. These mean the same thing. Minus 3. Okay. Our 4's cancel, and now we have x plus 3 minus 3. Our 3's cancel, or combine, and we get x. Guys, because we got an x out of both of our compositions by putting this one into this one, as well as this one into this one, we know that these are inverses because we both got an x. They both gave us an x. All right, guys. That's it from me. Until next time, thank you. I wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, the subscribers, the fans. Thank you for all that you do for me. Keep saying hi to me in public. It really doesn't bother me at all. I get a lot of people who approach me, especially at the village, different stores, the commons. Don't be afraid to approach. It's okay. I've gotten used to it over the years. So, like, subscribe, comment. Love you guys. See you.